This week we mark the second yahrzeit for Rabbi Dov Marmer of blessed memory. He led this congregation with distinction from 1983 to 2000, and I miss him. I miss his voice, and I miss his teaching, and I miss his encouragement, and I miss his good guidance. I imagine you do too. While I am glad he was spared the knowing about the devastation of October 7th and how Jewish life in his beloved Israel and throughout the diaspora is so changed since then, I long for his insight now. What would my teacher teach? So I went back to his books, and they brought me real comfort. I'd like to share an excerpt from his memoir entitled 6 Lives. Many of you have read it, and I'm going to see if we have any extra available. If so, I'll make them available on a table downstairs for you to pick up during the lunch so you can enjoy it on your own in its fullness. I'll share just an excerpt now in hopes that it will bring you some insight and comfort so you can hear Rabbi Marmer's voice again. The final chapter is dedicated to his 6th life, his life in Israel. Rabbi Marmer reflects on his aliyah in his retirement. When he wrote the book, it was still new. Whenever I'm called upon to describe our double life in Israel and in Canada, I not only state the obvious, that I feel privileged as a Jew to have witnessed the return of our people to our ancestral land, and I am keen to be part of this historic drama. I also refer to the American Protestant theologian Walter Brueggemann. In a book about the significance of the land, Brueggemann makes an important distinction between place and space. Place is where you find the roots of your people and where your people are at home. Space is where you are as an individual or a family or a community, where you happen to be at any given time. The space of most other people is also their place. 2 overlapping circles, but not so for Jews. Rabbi Marmer continues, as much as Jews insist that they are at home in the countries where they were born or to which they've immigrated, reality is often different. It's less different for North America, where others too, so many others, are immigrants as well. Yet once you challenge them, most Jews will concede that they don't feel rooted in the United States or Canada. Their commitment to their faith and their people makes them different. The American Declaration of Independence and the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms notwithstanding, Jews in Europe almost invariably see themselves and are seen by others as aliens, even though Jews in Britain are often offended by this assertion. And you remember that Rabbi Marmer served 2 congregations in England before he came to us. And he concludes, though I have happily occupied space in Sweden, England, and now Canada, I know that my place isn't there, but it is in Israel. We have been experiencing this tension between space and place. Despite our love and loyalty for this good country of Canada, we have undeniably been experiencing that tension, asking those questions. Is it space? Is it place? Under what circumstances? Who gets to decide? Our calendar gives us time to reflect on these questions, to grapple with that tension, and to wonder and even worry about the themes of place and space. Today we are in the midst of the time that we refer to as the 3 weeks. The 3 weeks from the 17th of Tammuz, when the walls of the Second Temple were breached by the Romans in the year 70 of the Common Era, to the 9th day of the Hebrew month of Av, when the temple was destroyed and our people carried off into exile, an exile that would last 2,000 years. Now, both the 17th of Tammuz and the 9th of Av are fast days. And while I regularly fast on Tisha B'Av, I have never fasted on the 17th of Tammuz. Not until this year. Why now? Because our protective walls were breached again this year. On the 7th of October, on the 22nd day of Tishrei, on our holy day of Shmini Atzeret Simchat Torah, a day intended for dancing, the wall along the Gaza border was breached. And I still can't really believe it. Fasting helps me to know it in my kishkes. We are still reeling from it. We are still grieving it. 1,200 people murdered in a single day, and more than 240 people from 41 countries were carried off into exile. An exile that grinds on for many of them now 294 days. May God watch over and protect them. And so my little fast this week, from sunrise to sunset, was really nothing. It came and went, but that quiet ritual, that little ache in my belly, felt right this year. An anonymous medieval prayer poem called Atanu Lecha is an alphabetical acrostic for this time, for the 17th of Tammuz. Let me share it with you now so that you can take comfort from what a poet of earlier centuries had to say. Atanu Lecha, we have come before you, O Creator of the breath of all that lives. We come heavily sighing with the multitude of our iniquities and lamenting sorely because of the harsh decrees. For on the 17th of Tammuz, the holy tablets of the law were broken. We were exiled from your chosen temple, and the light was darkened for us. Our sentence was sealed, and the decree was carried out. For on the 17th of Tammuz, the holy Torah was burnt. Our enemies had overthrown the temple. The divine presence fled from the interior of the holy palace, and we were betrayed into the hands of the wicked to be consumed by them. For on the 17th of Tammuz, an idol was placed in the temple. We were scattered from city to city, and the old and the young were taken captive. Our city was destroyed, and a fire was kindled therein. For on the 17th of Tammuz, the city was broken up. The destroying enemy acted with callousness toward our sanctuary. Bride and bridegroom were stripped of their ornaments because we provoked you to anger. We were given up to destruction that day. On the 17th of Tammuz, the daily offering ceased. So turn unto us, O God, you who dwell on high, and gather our dispersed from all the corners of the earth, and say unto Zion, Kuma v'nakuma, rise and arise, and convert the 17th of Tammuz, hafoch lanu, turn it upside down, invert it, make it just the opposite. Turn this day into a day of salvation and comfort for us all. Amen. Israelis use this word all the time now, hafoch. Everything is upside down. Everything is topsy-turvy. Nothing seems to make sense. And centuries ago, the poet used exactly that word, hafoch lanu. We are undone. So, how do we turn this day of sorrow into a day of comfort? How can we show ourselves to be deserving partners with the divine, courageous enough and clear-minded enough to invert the 17th of Tammuz to be a day of Yeshua and Nechama, salvation and comfort? Well, one answer is found in our Torah portion. We just heard Suzanne read the words, Se'u et rosh kol adat b'nei Yisrael. Literally, not literally, we'll get there. First, metaphorically, practically, this expression is taken to mean, in our translation we see it, take a census of the whole Israelite company. Why? Take a census of those who are miben esrim shana vamala, 20 years and older. Why? Kol yotzei tzava b'Yisrael. Because those are the Israelites who are able to bear arms for battle. What does it mean to take a census? Our rabbis consider in Numbers Rabbah that God is like the owner of precious jewels, a treasure trove. And from time to time, God takes them out and counts them, to take pleasure in each one's beauty, and to be reassured that, yes, indeed, they are all safe. Each one can be found here. So imagine God taking a census of the Jewish people, not one, not two, not three, all present and accounted for. If only it would be so. Today we read these words, Se'u et rosh, meaning something altogether different, something more in the context of war, something more against the backdrop of this time of fear and hatred. You see, Se'u et rosh also means lift up your heads. Lift up your head to be counted. There was a time in recent history when the state of Israel decided strategically to make a change. I heard Micha Goodman speak of it when I went to visit in November. He said, we were to have a tzava katan v'chacham, an army that was small and smart. And so the IDF invested in technology and in intelligence, and the army shrunk. There were many people given exemptions. No longer were so many tanks or bodies needed. But it seems that all that has changed. And now we read just this week how the state of Israel, its leadership, has passed a new law to expand military service back to 3 years for all men who are not Haredi, who are able-bodied. The reservists will now serve until the age of 41. This is an extension again. Officers will serve until the age of 46 by extension. And those with special skills like medics and mechanics and technicians, their reserve duty is now expanded to the age of 50. Each one counts. Every one necessary. Su'u et rosh, what does it mean to lift up your head? When we lift up our head, a few things happen. One is we grow taller. We feel more confident. We square our shoulders. We feel more proud, more capable, more able for whatever the mission may be before us. When we lift up our heads, we are more easily seen and more easily counted. What else happens when we lift up our heads? And I really believe the biblical author understood the link to the exposure of the neck. In biblical times, think of animal sacrifice, when the animal's neck would be extended. That's also what happens when we lift up our heads to be counted. We are made vulnerable. We're showing our most vulnerable feature. Today, I want to call attention and to bring into our prayers for healing the name of Benji Brown. He is a lone soldier from the city of Toronto. He is the son of Jeffrey Brown, someone who is community-minded. The president of his congregation was the president of the Bait up north. I met Jeffrey originally through the Hartman Institute, and he was very involved in an initiative there to bring Jews and Muslims together locally here. And Jeffrey believed in it then, he believes in it now. And I believe that his son, Benji, saw his father stick his neck out for a worthy cause, to be a bridge between peoples. And I imagine that's what inspired Benji to become a lone soldier, to voluntarily join the IDF and to serve valiantly over many months now. I'm afraid to report that just this week he was hit by a piece of shrapnel from a rocket launched by Hezbollah on the northern front, that northern front that is hardly ever mentioned in our media. He is receiving excellent care. His parents are now at his side, and he is fighting for his life. Binyamin Ber Ben Chana. May he know a refuah shlema, a complete healing of body and soul. I've been following Jeffrey's posts on Facebook, little updates here and there. And one of them said how delighted he was to learn that the head physician of the neuro unit at this premier neurology hospital is not a Jewish man, but a Muslim physician named Tariq. And that's not unusual in Israel, by the way. Many of the medical professionals in Israel, I believe some 20% or more, are Muslim. We don't hear about this either very often, but it's an important story. And Jeffrey says, now my son's life is in his hands. So we're following the stories of the soldiers. We keep them close in our prayers. What about us? How do we fulfill this mitzvah, Se'u et Rosh, lift up your heads? How do we lift up our heads now? How do we find our courage? How do we stand tall and be counted? Rabbi Menachem Nahum of Chernobyl charges us, let the Israelites hold their heads high in pride as they contemplate who their ancestors were. That's one way we can do this. What inspires us to lift up our heads? Know where you come from. Know your ancestors. Know to whom you belong. Call up the memories of all those who came before you, who were strong and proud and courageous. And Rabbi Levi Yitzchak of Berdichev teaches that in the Torah it says there are 603,550 Israelites. And lo and behold, there are also 603,550 letters in the Torah. And just as the absence of one letter renders an entire Torah scroll unfit, pasul, the loss of even one Jew prevents the Jewish people from fulfilling its divine mission. If we extrapolate that beyond every soldier being necessary, it means every one of us is necessary. Every one of us is needed to fulfill the divine mission, as Levi Yitzchak says. Every act of advocacy, every letter you write to elected officials, every petition you sign, every rally you show up and lift up your head and be counted, every time you ask a colleague or a neighbor who seems to be ill-informed or questioning or curious, every time you say to them, "Come, let's sit together. Let me help you to understand." Every Jewish act, every set of Shabbat candles you light, every word of Torah you study, every hour you devote as a volunteer to strengthen the Jewish people, somehow every dollar you devote, it all counts. It all matters. If every little letter matters in the Torah, then certainly every one of us matters. And the accumulation of our deeds and the accumulation of our prayers, these are enough to make a difference. These are enough to turn a day of mourning, God willing, into a day of Yeshua and Nechama, of rescue and comfort. So let me conclude now with a contemporary piyut, a modern prayer poem written by an Israeli Reform rabbi, Ofer Shabbat Beit Halachmi. And he writes it exactly for this day as well. El Elohei Ha'edut, God of the covenant, intimate of the heart, creator of the world, gaze from Horeb, where Eliyahu once stood, and forgive. Through your love, send healing and mend the cracks that are within me, like the cracks that were then, long ago, in the tablets of the law. The cracks in me have been caused by the senselessness of serving idols. Forgive the shards I left scattered along my way, broken bits of body and broken pieces of soul, for it all happened by mistake, the result of human frailty. Forgive, and through your hidden love, b'chesdecha hane'elam, through your hidden love, bestow upon us the shattered tablets, a mystical repair of acceptance and light, tikkun shel kabbalah va'or, a restoration of acceptance and light. And send me strength, O God, so that I might stand before you with my head held high once again. Amen.